In these islands, gold was so common that people wore it on their teeth. Their sailors had crossed more open ocean than almost anyone alive on Earth. And when the first European fleet arrived to claim them, a chieftain named Lapulapu killed its captain on the beach. That captain was Ferdinand Magellan, and his was the first voyage ever to sail around the world. So why do we know this place by the name of a Spanish king? Because a few decades later, the empire came back, and the next time, it stayed. 300 years of it. A new religion, a new language, a new name, the Philippines, after Philip II of Spain. But here's the thing they don't teach you. It came within a hair of never happening at all. The first conqueror died on that beach. The islands were already rich, already powerful, already wired into half of Asia. So picture the ships never coming back. Picture these 7,000 islands left to follow their own current. You'd get a country almost no one alive today would recognize. A nation of gold and sails that might never have had a president at all. This is the story of the Philippines that was never conquered. And the strangest part is how close it really was. First, the world as it actually was, because the islands these explorers found were not empty, and they were not poor. Long before any European arrived, the ancestors of the Filipino people were among the greatest sailors who have ever lived. They were Austronesians, the same seafaring family that in open outrigger canoes settled islands from Madagascar to Easter Island, across more than half the circumference of the planet. Think about that. While much of the world still hugged its coastlines, these people were navigating the open Pacific by the stars. In the Philippines, they built boats called balangay, plank vessels stitched together with fiber, fast and seaworthy. The oldest ones ever found, pulled from the mud of Butuan in the southern Philippines, are over 1,000 years old. And from that one word, balangay, comes barangay, the name for the community a single boat could carry, and still the name for the smallest unit of government in the Philippines today. But the boats were only half the story. The other half was gold, because the Philippines was a land of gold. It ran in the rivers and the mountains, and the people mined it, panned it, and worked it with a skill that stunned everyone who saw it. The Spanish eyewitnesses could barely believe their eyes. They wrote of islanders wearing gold ornaments, gold daggers, even teeth pegged with gold. Archaeologists have since lifted breathtaking hoards from the ground, golden sashes, diadems, and a single heavy image, nearly 4 pounds of pure craftsmanship, now called the Golden Tara of Agusan. This was a society wealthy enough to wear its riches on its own body. And it wasn't just rich, it could read and write. A copper plate found near Manila, inscribed in the year 900, records the forgiveness of a debt, measured in precise weights of gold in an Indian-derived script. A literate, lawful, wealthy society, more than 5 centuries before Magellan was ever born. So how do you govern a place like this? The answer is the key to everything that follows. Because there was no king of the Philippines. There never had been. The basic unit was the barangay, led by a chief called a datu. A respected, successful datu could draw others under his influence, building large estates. And by the 1500s, there were real powers among the islands. The twin cities of Tondo and Maynila on Manila Bay, ruled by lords called Lakan and Raja. The trading Rajanatis of Cebu and Butuan in the Visayas. And in the south, 2 Islamic sultanates, Sulu and Maguindanao, plugged into a Muslim trade world that reached all the way to Arabia. This was not one nation. It was a constellation, dozens of polities competing, trading, and intermarrying, bound together by sea lanes rather than by a single crown. And then, in 1521, the ships appeared. Here is where history turns. So here is our single change. In our history, the first captain's death only delayed Spain. In 1565, it came back to stay, planted itself in Cebu, and 6 years later, took Manila. From there, the conquest spread until almost the whole archipelago answered to Madrid. But imagine it never takes hold. Maybe the later expeditions fail, the way the first one did. Maybe Spain, stretched thin across a global empire, decides these distant islands simply aren't worth the cost. Or maybe the Datus and the Sultans, who had already destroyed one European fleet, unite to throw out the rest. Whatever the reason, the colony never happens. No 300 years of foreign rule. No single foreign king. The islands keep their own gods, their own writing, their own names, and they keep their place at the crossroads of Asian trade. From here, we leave the history we know and step into the country that might have grown. Free to follow their own current, the islands lean into the one thing they had always done best, the sea. And here is where being an archipelago stops being a weakness. 7,000 islands. More coastline than almost any nation on Earth. In our timeline, that scattering was something an outsider had to stitch together by force. But in this one, it is the very source of power. The balangay grows into great trading fleets. The harbour cities, Manila, Cebu, Butuan, Jolo, swell into cosmopolitan ports, the way Venice did, or Malacca, growing rich on the tax and trade of everything that passes through them. And the gold underwrites all of it. Filipino goldsmiths, already among the finest in the region, supply the temples and courts of half of Asia. The islands strike their own coinage from their own mountains. Where Spain once shipped that gold across the Pacific to fund a foreign empire, here it stays, building wharves, fleets, dowries, and the fortunes of a homegrown merchant class. And these island states would not have faced the world alone or unarmed. Remember Japan, which kept its independence and later modernized on its own terms. An unconquered Philippines could have met the cannon and the steamship not as a subject, but as a rival, buying foreign technology while keeping its own soul. But that raises the biggest question of all. Who would actually rule it? This is where an unconquered Philippines looks the least like the country we know. There would almost certainly be no president, because there might be no single nation for a president to lead. So think about how the rest of maritime Asia governed itself. One likely path is a patchwork of sultanates and rajanates, the Islam that had already reached Manila by the time the Spanish arrived, spreading further north, until much of the archipelago becomes a world of royal courts, like the sultanates of Malaysia and Brunei, that still survive to this day. But here's the more tantalizing path: confederation. Picture the islands binding their many datus into a single league. A council of chiefs and merchant princes, choosing a paramount ruler from among themselves rather than inheriting one. A senate of the seas. A lakan, or a sultan, elected by the great houses, first among equals, presiding over a federation of self-governing ports. Not a president, something closer to a crowned republic of islands, held together by trade, by marriage, and by a shared sea. And this isn't fantasy. There's real precedent. The Sultanate of Sulu chose its rulers from a royal line, by council. Maritime Southeast Asia was full of these negotiated elected kingships. Power here flowed along the water, and the water belongs to no one man, so the leader of this Philippines might not be a president at all. He might be a paramount datu, or an elected sultan of sultans, ruling not from a fixed marble palace, but from the deck of a flagship, moving between the islands that owe him their loyalty. And then, as it did for everyone, the modern world comes knocking. In our timeline, the Philippines met that world as a colony, handed from Spain to the United States, and then fighting for more than a century to finally become a nation of its own. But this Philippines meets the steamships as a free and wealthy power. It might industrialize like Japan, or be pressured and pried open like China, but it negotiates from strength, with its own gold, its own fleets, its own ancient script, never having to win back an identity, because it never lost one. Now, here's the part we have to be honest about. The Philippines we actually have was forged the hard way. 3 centuries of Spanish rule, then American, then a long and bloody fight for freedom. And that struggle is exactly what gave the islands a shared faith, a shared story, and a single nation out of 1,000 scattered shores. The Filipino identity is real. It was hard-won, and there is a deep, fierce pride in the road that was actually walked. But it is worth dreaming, just for a moment, of the timeline that slipped away. A Philippines that was never renamed for a foreign king. A nation of gold and sails, ruled by a council of the seas. A country that never had to be broken and then rebuilt, because it was never broken in the first place. If timelines like this one are why you're here, subscribe, because erasing the world we know and rebuilding it is the whole point of this channel. But before you go, tell me this: what would that Philippines look like today? And if you could choose, would you trade the country that is for the one that might have been?